ICQ Podcast, episode 396, Thoughts from the Canvey Island Rally. Well, hello fellow Amtown Radio enthusiasts, and welcome to this, our 396th episode of the ICQ Amtown Radio Podcast, supported this episode by our monthly and subscription donors. In this episode, we join Martin M1MRB, along with Frank Kilo 4 Foxtrot Mike Hotel, Bill Whiskey Charlie 3 Bravo, Martin Mike 0 Sierra Golf Lima, and Leslie Golf 0 Charlie India Bravo, as they discuss the latest Amtown Radio news. Myself, Colin M6BRY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature are the thoughts and a review from the Canvey Island Rally. As mentioned, it's our very kind donors that keep your ICQ podcast advert free, and they show their value for what we do by sending to us one-off and monthly and annual subscription donations. It's a very easy thing to do and a great concept to take part in. You just think of the value you got from today's show, turn that into a monetary figure, and go to icqpodcast.com/donate, where you can send that to us in that donation level. And so we'd ask you to consider us and help us keep us advert free. Well, let's generate that value by joining the two Martins, Frank, Bill and Leslie, as they discuss and generate thoughts about the latest Amtown Radio news, including the 44net survey results and AI chat on the air. As always, I hope you enjoy.
Well, hi guys, welcome to episode 396 of the ICQ podcast and tonight's news roundtable for that episode. Tonight, let's look at my list. I have Mr. Martin Rothwell M0SGL, who's probably going to try and get me into all sorts of trouble.
Your name will also go on the list. What is it? Don't tell him, Martin. Hello.
Hi, Martin. Yeah, we're going to have fun tonight. Moving across the pond, we have Mr. Frank Howell, K4FMH. Hi, Frank.
Hey, Martin. Hey, everyone. Great to be here.
Yeah, it should be fun. Also across the pond, we have Mr. Bill Barnes, WC3B, and hopefully they ain't going to try and hook you out of this one for another meeting, Bill.
Yeah, no, I lucked out this time around. Plus, I'm recovering from my surgery, so we're in good shape now and ready to go. And that's because I know who you're going to introduce next. I just want to preview for everyone's sake. Good evening, everybody.
Yeah, he's with us tonight. Mr. Leslie Butterfields, G0CIB. Hi, Leslie.
Good evening, Martin, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me on.
It's good. It's good. And Bill does enjoy doing impressions of your earlier.
Sigh.
It's fun. We're all family here. All right, guys. Starting off, Dan Rowanchek, one of the presenters on the other team, sent me some information about the Amateur Radio Digital Communications Group, and they actually did a survey, 44 net assessment survey, and the results are in. So, it's interesting. We're not 100% sure what people will think, but we thank Dan for sending it. Frank, do you want to go first on this one, because you're the statistic man in this group?
Sure. And I was glad to see this happen. As many of our listeners know, the Amateur Radio Digital Communications, ARDC, also known as Moneybags of Ham Radio, they sold some internet protocol addresses to Google and got a lot of money and set up a foundation. So for those who, have been had their light under a candle and in a cave for the last couple of years, that's who they are. And our colleague Dan Romanchek worked for them as an editor and PR guy for them, and he sent this along. I'm glad that ARDC did this. They contracted with a consultancy group called 2P, and they have some content expertise in networking and systems management. The thing that ARDC still does, besides the grant stuff, is that they do manage the remaining internet protocol address space known as AMPRNet, AMPRNet. So this is about not the foundation, but AMPRNet. And they did, in the survey world, surveys come in all kinds and colors and shapes. To evaluate something, and that's kind of a formal term, evaluation research has two broad genres of activity. One is formative evaluation, where you're taking some assessment, collecting some data to see how well the program is working. The other part is evaluative or summative evaluation. Hey, do we need to keep this thing around or not? And that's usually where you make a determination to continue a program or to end it. And so this is the first type. It's a formative assessment result. So they got 2P to collect some data from several places online. And my only critique of this is that, I come from academic research, member of American Association of Public Opinion Researchers, or APOR, and there are certain standards and all that kind of stuff. If you're not into that, then you tend not to know about those standards or follow them. So I'm coming at it from a little bit of that, that genre or that perspective. They got about 1,500 people to respond. The key thing is, it kind of sort of isn't how many you get, it's where they come from. And, that might be a criticism, could be a criticism of surveys I've done. So let me leave it right there. But they give some interesting results about who's been using AmperNet. Most of 99% are licensed amateur operators. And so if you take their results and put it in the framework, we don't really know how to generalize these results, like how active you are, what age you are, what do you do with AmperNet. That's not reflective of all amateur radio. So if you take it for what it is, it's a very good body of data that I don't think they've had before. And I think if you begin to look at this, and I'm sure we'll put a link into the show notes, and ARDC will have, or AmperNet will have it on their website. It's really worth looking at for that slice of ham who are involved with internet-based activities where you're bridging things like Arden, Broadband Hamnet, that kind of thing, or other packet-related activities. I'm going to end there, Martin. You put it in that framework, it's really interesting. And I'm going to say this, being a statistician, if you're not interested in the subject, statistics is boring. But if you are, it can be very exciting.
Well, there you go, Frank. Now, the other thing is, in fairness, I think these days more and more data is coming out of people. People can't hide behind a walled garden anymore, or not as much as they used to do. We are seeing certain surveys like this. Whether they give us the whole picture, probably not. But it's getting better all the time, I would have thought.
But the more you have, the more slices, the better sense you do have of the picture. You get all the dinosaur feet, and you've got an idea what the neck and head look like, Martin. That's really my point.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one. That's a good point. I'm going to go to Bill next. Bill, what's your thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts on this because I actually filled out this survey. First off, Arden, Frank mentioned, Arden by design uses a private non-routable IPv4 range. So to connect Arden nodes to the internet, you have to have some sort of gateway. And I'm oversimplifying that concept. But basically, it's to ensure that no prohibited traffic, from the internet comes into the amateur radio space. AmperNet is Amateur Packet Radio Network. It's the publicly routable 44 network. So that means if you advertise a 44 net that you're allowed to use on an internet gateway that's connected to other internet gateways, you will start to send and receive traffic to that IP address or IP address range based on that. So first off, the one thing the survey kind of highlighted to me was there's not very many of these points on the internet with, I think it's the UCSD is the main hub at this point. So to go from RF to internet, there's very few places that are doing this without using a tunneling protocol or other kinds of VPN-like things. So I thought that was interesting. Of course, when I filled out the survey, I checked the box of I used to use it, because back in the day when JNOS was a thing, you needed to get an IP address from your local coordinator to be able to get on the 2-meter packet TCP/IP network. But basically, the neat thing about it back then, and it's still true, except there's a lot more things you can do now, was, if you could do it over the internet, you could do it over the AmperNet. The problem is that, to me, a lot of things that are commodity internet things that people expect nowadays, it's all encrypted. So you got to be very careful with that, with the licenses and stuff for amateur radio. But this whole survey thing is basically the beginning of a planning document. So they've had these IP addresses since, I think it was 78 to 81 or something like that is when they got the original range. And they sold a chunk of them off, like it was stated earlier, and they're using that money for grants and other things for, trying to remember the word, but basically you could apply for funding from them for your amateur radio group or amateur radio project. And that's been, as far as I'm concerned, very successful. So there's 12 million IP addresses left. So as they look at the usage and what people are planning on doing for the future, they're trying to predict how many they're going to need. Because if they're not going to need 12 million, in a few years, that's another chunk of network that they will be able to auction off and get more money to donate and use that money to help organizations around the world. So there's a lot of possibilities here. Likewise, the last thing I want to say on the data is the data was interesting. And one of the things that popped out was people are asking for easier modern connectivity, easier turnkey software. That's one that I jumped on. Boy, it would be neat to have a Raspberry Pi image where I could hook, cable in the internet. And after I hook in the internet, I can hook it up to the radio and basically be a, IP-based, RF bridge. Likewise, another one is they were asking for better documentation and training events. I think that would be neat as well. The one thing I do want to share is if you are interested, there is a 44net mailing list. I am not on it anymore because it was just enough traffic that I'm like, okay, I gotta stop this. But I do go look at the archives every once in a while because it is interesting. So they're planning for the future, and I think that's a really good sign. Is my summary.
Yeah, well, that's a good one, Bill. That's a good one on that. Leslie, I know you don't do sort of much internet radio and digital type radio stuff and one thing and another, and you're an HF man, but at least the graphs are pretty, aren't they?
Yeah, you're right, Martin. I'm not a digital person at all. I like playing with the HF and also VHF as well. VHF, UHF, that's fine. So that side of things, digital, is not really my cup of tea. I do appreciate what they've done in terms of getting data together, and it's a good indication of where things should go. It's not really my cup of tea, to be honest, so I've got to pass on this one. Sorry, Martin.
No problems at all, mate. No problems at all. Well, as I say, it's just interesting. Martin, what's your thoughts on this one?
Oh, do you know what? I love that. It's a great advert for the Digital Talk group from Leslie there, isn't it? It's just not, digital's not my cup of tea. No, there's a pork pie floating in it. That's what it is, isn't it? All this work that Martin's put in to get the Digital Talk group going, it's not my cup of tea. It's not got a pork pie floating in it. But sorry.
The only thing, I'm going to butt in there, the only thing I know about statistics is too much pie is greater circumference.
I was going to go off at a complete tangent there, but yes.
Fact check true.
It's fake news. So where were we? Yes, I've completely forgotten where I was. As Frank says, with any statistics, you have to be interested in the subject that the statistics are for them to be interesting. Otherwise, they are very, very boring. I am not a stats person. Pretty much every work I've ever worked for is obsessed with stats, and I can, believe you me, every stats that I've ever been asked to provide, I can make them look whichever way you want them to look. Well, do you want them to look positive or negative? Fine, I'll just give you that data. And in fact, I worked for a very well-known computer manufacturer who was so obsessed with stats. They were so blind to the fact that all the stats they were working with were completely made up. But looking through the stuff here, it's an interesting spread of results just from the stuff that are on the pages here. How often people participate in amateur radio programs, daily, a few hours a week, weekly, whatever. And then some of the bodies that people feel that they fit into, whether they're a computer engineer, internet policy advocate, what's that? Network engineers, that sort of stuff. It's some interesting stuff, and I should certainly. I'm interested in it enough that I will probably click on this and read a little bit more on it, but not interested to the extent that I will read it in excessive detail. But as long as you go into it understanding this does not necessarily represent the entire amateur radio, ecosystem population, as it were, then it's an interesting read, nevertheless.
Yeah, it's a statistic on a particular group, and they've publicised, so we can't knock them for doing that, in fairness.
Oh, no, not at all.
And I thank Dan for sending me it to give us something to talk about, because we've gone quite long on this story. That's good news. Right, next news story. Missouri S&T, and I'm told that is...
Science and technology.
Yeah, I'm told it's Science and Technology. Amateur Radio Club is celebrating 100 years. Well, that's kind of really good. It's a stateside story, so Bill, do you want to go first on this one?
Yes, 100 years. I like these stories because it's it's pre-FCC, which that's always neat. And it's also, to me, very interesting how a club survived the Great Depression, the amateur radio shutdown of World War II, and incentive licensing and no-code technicians. Oh, you like I threw all those together and conflated everything? But either way, congratulations to them for making it 100 years. They got 20 active members with over 300 alumni. And it's a university club. That's the other part I wanted to mention as well. It's students learning radio as they're studying their college studies, and I always love this kind of stuff. So congratulations.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, mate. Go on, Leslie. What do you think of a club achieving 100 years? I mean, my club hasn't done it.
Going back to the other comment, I'm sure I can find an article that says amateur radio was finished when they brought SSB in, but...
Don't mention digital.
No, it's not my cup of tea, Anyway, apart from that, happy birthday, Missouri S&T Amateur Radio Club, and congratulations on 100 years. I think it's great, and more power to their elbow.
Yeah, that's a good one. Frank, what's your thoughts?
Well, I always enjoy these. Bill's comments are very similar to how I feel. When you go back in the history of an organization like this, however large or small it was at any moment in time, 100 years, think of all the people whose lives that touched. And when I was doing the work on the Pied Piper, and the executive on Hugo Gernsback as the Pied Piper and Hiram Percy Maxim as the executive. And I did a lot of reading about early radio before the FCC was around, and it was people just making it up. I mean, they were making it up as they were going along. So you think about all the years that around an institution such as a university. They say in the article they have 20 current active members and over 300 alumni. Think about those 300 people and the role that may have played in their lives as students. And, it may have just been something someone did while they were in college, went off in a completely different direction. On the other hand, it could have been an inspiration for their career. and part of their life. So I look at it in those terms, and I'm just delighted that they're celebrating, 100 years. They go back into a time that gave life to the hobby we practice and enjoy.
They certainly did. And in fairness, there's not a lot of clubs have done 100 years yet. I know we are probably about 20 years away from it at Sutton and Cheam. I think we're in the 70s, if I remember rightly. But don't beat me too hard, Martin. But what's your thoughts, Martin?
Oh, don't ask me how long we've been going. I mean, come on, you must have been one of the founding members of the club, wouldn't you? Something like that. Anyway, I'm kidding. I was trying to work out how long we've been going. I know we haven't hit 100. We have just passed a milestone. I can't remember if it was 70 or 75. That's why we need Chris. I could Google it, but I'm far too lazy. I'd like to sing Happy Birthday, but I'm not sure that the copyright has lapsed on Happy Birthday. I don't think we can play it, but either way, happy birthday to these people. Congratulations, 100 years of the club. It's no mean feat, especially there's a lot of clubs nowadays disappearing. A lot of things are going online. The meeting in person, even Sutton and Cheam, we are, we've moved away from in-person meetings. A lot more things happening on digital platforms, online, on Teams and what have you. So for them to be going after 100 years is a massive success. I would love to see another 100 years. I would love to know that these clubs will be going for another 100 years, or it'll be out of our lifetimes. But congratulations to them. Here's to the next 100.
Yeah, all we can do is move with the times, and hopefully we'll be around as clubs and in this hobby for a lot longer. I had this is one of our members. He's one of our 3 people that are the sensible members that we go to if the committee can't solve something. And he's been on about why can't we go back to in-person meetings where we used to meet. And it's quite simple now. If you want your membership to go up by about 5 times, because that's what it costs, the hall prices since people have gone away with the COVID, the people who own the halls are trying to make their money back, and the prices of halls have gone through the roof. And it would mean that we probably have to put the membership price up by about 5 times, which instantly you're going to get loads of people leave. So it's difficult.
You've got one person sitting in the room on his own then.
Yeah. And it is difficult to do that. So I understand. I listen to everybody, and yeah, it's one of those things. But we just have to do what we can and keep things live. So that's where I am on that. But 100 years, congratulations, guys. As the boys have said, we do appreciate 100 years. That's pretty damn good. Move to our next news story, and mine. I'm going to get you go first on this one because you've been last twice. The Voice of ChatGPT is now on air. And basically, I'm not quite sure how you do this, but if you've got a D-Star radio, you can call up a computer AI box and have a conversation with a computer. What do you think, mine?
I'm probably going to be controversial. Now, this is one of these things, it is very, very clever. Now, this is only something that I've even heard of in the last couple of weeks. I've never heard of ChatGPT before this. It's, for those that don't know, it is effectively a bot. You can ask it something, you can tell it to do something, and it will talk back to you with an AI response that is sufficiently clever that you probably can't tell that it was written by an AI. Now, this is a case of someone who's managed to put this and make this available on D-Star. I don't know if this is something that is open to everyone to try, or whether this is just something that he's managed to do and get it to effectively synthesize a voice and talk back to you. But, even today, one of my colleagues was saying, I wrote a letter, because he lives in a particular part of the world where you have to apply to live in a house in a flat share or whatever, and you have to write a letter, and he just got it to do that. There are stories about, will it be able to write someone's thesis for university? There are potential, can kids write stuff and hand their homework in that has been written by this bot rather than learning it? And do the schools, the universities and stuff have the ability to decode the fact that this was not written by your student. I don't know. No, I should say I don't know that for sure. But I'm interested by this. I'd like to see it working. I'd like to see it. But it does scare me a lot that there is going to be suddenly you're dealing with effectively a robot that is very, very clever, that can respond, and there's going to be a lot more. You bear in mind there's a lot of people out there like scammers and things like that. There are people that phone you up, hey, can I get you a better deal on this? And they scam people out of their savings. If you don't have to have someone sitting there talking to them, and then suddenly you've got a voice that can do this, and you can almost program it to have an in-person conversation. You could have some person on the end of a phone somewhere being scammed out of their life savings by a computer. So is it good that you can do this with a voice and someone's developed it? It's damn clever. Is it a good thing? I personally don't think so. And I personally, from a personal point of view, I would be happy if it went away. I know it's not going to, but I would be happy if it went away.
I think you've raised some very good points, Martin. Very, very clever. Very, very interesting. But potential to be used in the wrong way. I think it's this. Now, I'm going to go to him again. Leslie, I know this is another digital thing, but you were quite vocal earlier on when we first told you about it.
Oh, what can I say? It just reminds me, I'm not a contester fan, and if somebody comes on there and says 59001, I go switch off. Sorry, but I appreciate what it can be used for, and as a tool, research tool, I can see its uses. In terms of essays, I think students would be, shall we say, found out by their natural style of writing. As if the tutors actually saw their style of writing change, it may ring a few alarm bells. But I'm just going to sit back and watch to see where this goes. It could be worrying, but we're not going to stop it. See where it goes.
Yeah, as I say, I think it is very clever. That's one thing. Frank, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I've got a few. One little technical thing is I looked at the story, and I'm not sure you can tell, but it's just a question of a control operator. Is there a human operator in control of the computer with the ChatGPT response? I assume there is. It may not be terribly different than, a repeater that's controlled remotely by the trustee, and it has certain announcements that are put on. It could be something as pedestrian as that, but that's one thing. The second thing about having been a professor and having graded way too many term papers, as we like to call them here in the States, sometimes in large undergraduate classes, that's the only writing assessment in an essay style that you may see of a given student, say in a class of 300, just to make up a number. So you may not get a previous version of that. Now, we've used online tools. Turnitin is one commercial one, and there are several others which you get papers submitted, you get them submitted electronically, and you kind of run them through this process. I will say that social fraternities and sororities on U.S. campuses have been very adept over the years at having term papers for a given course that received A's, and they'd keep them on file. And I got one that turned out I had gotten it some years before, but then another student in a later class in the same sorority submitted it, and I told her I gave it a D then, and gee, I'd give it a D now. So it gets to be very muddied, at least in the teaching realm, on this. I've seen people say, well, just do oral exams. And I go, yeah, and your tuition would have to go up by about 50 to 100% to pay additional people to do that. In that, that's not a good solution, certainly one that's cost effective. My kind of thing is this. Right now, ChatGPT is an online service, as I understand it, and Bill and Martin and others who may know better. But when it gets commoditized, so where we've got it embedded in a small machine, dare I say, will it replace the need to learn CW? You could do it from a keyboard, both sending and receiving in terms of interpretation. I realize that's outright heresy to those that have strong feelings about Morse code. I'm just making an observation about what the technology is potentially capable of. And it's not going backwards, folks. It's not going backwards. So I think it's here with us.
I think you're right. There's all these new technologies that are coming along that we could have, they were the stuff of science fiction years ago. I mean, you look at the old Star Trek, the original Star Trek. I mean, people would have thought that was total science fiction, yet so many of the things in that now.
And yet we all now have communicators, right?
Yeah. Flip
Just
phone.
think of the flip phone.
Yeah, the flip phone, all those sort of things. Well, they've come forward.
I think they're past that now, though, isn't it?
I mean, they've even managed to redo cloaking, I believe, because they can bend light round small objects. They obviously can't anything big, but they could make a coffee cup disappear by bending the light round it. So
you can make a weather presenter disappear. Just chuck a green cloth over his head.
That'll do.
If you do it in chroma key, just disappear into the background, didn't you? The green screen.
Yeah, that's true. But there's lots of interesting technologies. Bill, you seem to be quite excited about this one when I spoke about it a little bit earlier. What do you think?
Yes, in the most negative of ways. I think this is horrible. Oh my gosh. It's like, I lightly jest about, an exciting low signal data mode that got very popular over a few years as being stupid. And here you're talking to a computer, and that's even more stupid. It's like, oh my gosh. And the other thing that they said in the article that I thought was interesting is we can imagine within the next month, AIs will be chatting up all over the airwaves with similar setup. The last thing I need is to work a DX station that's just a computer talking back to me. Oh, it's horrible. Horrible.
Go on, Bill. Just call it what it is. Chat GP stupid T.
That's right. And it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, there's a lot of things in the world, and I say this, because I work in a large team, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. You may think you're clever, but it's like you're opening Pandora's box, and once it's open, you can't close it. So I think this is horrible.
Oh dear. It is going to be an interesting one. And listen, you're talking to somebody who doesn't do internet banking, and odd time I go into the bank and I have to sit down with one of the ladies to do something for me, and they sit there struggling with it. They look at me like I'm a complete muppet, and I play along. I play a bit thick at times, and then they struggle on their computer screen to do something, and I look at them and go, if you use this key sequence, that'll solve your problem. You can do this. And I go, how do you know that? I said, I didn't say I didn't know how to use computers. I said I didn't want to do internet banking, because the minute I do internet banking, you ain't got a job. They look at me real strange. Anyway, there's a lot of things that are horrible at the moment that we're being forced to do. I've got a solicitor that said, can you fill the thing in on my app? No, I'm not doing the work on a mobile phone. End of story. Send me the paperwork in the paper, in the post. I'm not doing it. Anyway, that's another.
Hey, Martin, I got a brilliant idea actually for this software. You know, I won't say his name, but there's that one guy on our repeater that just insists on going there and just being racist and talking about his ailments. Yeah. Perhaps we could just connect this Chat GPT up to the repeater. Let him talk to that for the day. That'll keep him occupied, and then we can go and have a conversation somewhere else.
No, you need to actually tell him that he's got to move frequency to this, and then have that talk to him all day. Yeah,
we just set up on a local transmitter near his house. He'll think he's on the repeater. It'll be fine.
Yeah, he'd enjoy that.
He'd be there for hours. I can't believe it. This guy talks to me all day, 24 hours a day.
Yeah. We're being very naughty here.
They're mind
I
boggles.
didn't name anybody.
Yeah, you didn't. Let's move to our next news story before we get into trouble. People across north central Florida are learning to use ham radio. Frank, you said this was college area, didn't you? That it's
Yes.
quite nice that people are showing our hobby off, I thought.
It is. And if any of our listeners have ever played the game, Where is Waldo? We have an answer because this is from Waldo, Florida. It is near Gainesville, Florida, which is the home of the University of Florida. And it's about the Gainesville Amateur Radio Society. Actually set up a demonstration in the Waldo, Florida City Square. And they had some apparently great success in showing off what amateur radio does and all the things about when all else fails and things around that. And it's just a very, very good story. It's a challenge, I suspect, for a club to pick what we might call a winning location for this. You can imagine some locations might not work very well. But where you have a city square that attracts people into it on given days, particularly on the weekends and things like that, you're probably going to have better success and get the cooperation of city officials because you got antennas and things like that. So I just think they pulled off a great event, and it's a really good story about people who may not know much about our hobby or think we're like the fictional character Herman Munster on the TV series The Munsters in his basement. A lot of images like that. They get broken when they see people like us. They just happen to enjoy this hobby. So I rather like this one.
Yeah, you told me you weren't going to tell people that I look like Herman Munster.
Yeah, I haven't told people that. I have sent out a few pictures with yours next to Herman, though. I didn't say a word.
He looks more like Alf.
Hey, he's better looking than me, though, Frank. Oh, dear. Okay, Martin, what's your thoughts on this one?
I was going to say, he looks more like Alf. Anyway, I read this, and I'd like, come again for Big Cheese? Has someone proofread the article before it got published publicly? Amateur radios, better known as ham radios, were invented in the early 1900s to communicate during power outages. And like, okay, was that the whole purpose that amateur radio was developed to communicate during a power outage? How much power was around in the early 1900s? Was that not probably like mostly battery kind of things back then? Or I don't know, wasn't it just communications in general, experimentation? I don't know, maybe I'm just reading too much into that. Well, either way, most people recognize that radio nowadays will work when phones don't. That's got to be a good thing. Even the emergency services who rely on not cellular networks, but radio networks, they recognize that their kit won't necessarily work when the amateur radio stuff does. So the fact that they are promoting ham radio, amateur radio to new people, to younger people, I think it gives radio kids and people of a disciplined approach the ability to communicate when everything else doesn't work. That can only be a good thing.
Yeah, certainly can, Martin, certainly can. So, yeah, on that one. Bill, what's your thoughts on that one?
like Martin, I did notice that too. But if you've ever watched what we call the local news in America, this is exactly how every story about anything ever starts. It's like the one time they're talking about the Kiwanis Club, and I just rolled my eyes going, that's not only what the Kiwanis Club does.
But you're telling me there's someone that doesn't work for the TV station, like that looks after the transmitter, that isn't an amateur radio guy that could have filled them in a bit?
Well,
have we heard of Mr. Google?
That's two separate things that are very easy to address. Number one is most stations outsource the actual maintenance of the towers and transmitters now. So no, they don't have anybody local to ask. And number two is nobody believes Google anymore. So
No, Google, not Wikipedia.
Yeah, Wikipedia is probably safer. We do a whole well, Frank knows this from his past career. We do a whole course on how to evaluate the junk you read on the internet to see if it even passes the sniff test that it might be true.
Wasn't it Abraham Lincoln said, "Don't believe everything you read on the internet"?
That's
Correct.
right.
Yeah.
The problem is that the reporter met Mr. Deadline.
Yeah. And a lot of this stuff, I mean, I know how one of the local stations work because I had some friends that worked at it, and it's like stories like this were canned, and they might have actually did work on this story like a year ago, but they held it for when they needed like a minute and 30 to fill out a show. So they could have just grabbed this out of the can and not even looked at it over the years. But either way, I mean, as we make fun of local television and what a wasteland it is sometimes, the reality is, to me, at least they tried, and it's nice that we get some PR. May not be the best PR, but something's better than nothing when it's free. And so that's the way I looked at it. I thought it was still a nice article and nice attempt.
Yeah. Well, as I say, even if they weren't outsourcing your engineering, there's probably the so-called on-air talent will be looking at the engineers thinking, scruffy bunch of herberts, what they know about anything.
They're the guys keeping the equipment working to keep you employed.
Yes, we know that, Martin, because we understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, Martin, I'll add our colleague on another network, George Thomas, W5JDX. He does that work for a company that has 5 or 6 stations in the Jackson area. And having been part of the talent, as you said, they don't meet those people. Hardly ever they meet those people. And this was a problem with the editor, not kind of going through it. The editor probably didn't know any better, in terms of the history of amateur radio. So,
yeah. Well, dare I go off at a tangent here and mention our trip to Dayton about 4 years ago, when the very, very polished, beautiful Fox presenter was wandering around with a cameraman, and you guys decided that she was far better looking than me, and she should do the interview with Martin Dew. And I walked across to her and I said, "Hey, excuse me," I said, "the guys over there, that bunch of perverts over there," they all looked embarrassed. I said, "They reckon you're far better looking than me, and they'd like you to do our interview with Martin Dew. So just let me know, I'll do yours on Fox." And at that point in time, she went into full-scale panic mode. No, can't do it. We were messing around.
Martin, the way I remember that is you thought she looked better than us, but hey, who am I to quibble?
Well, she did look better than you lot, that's for certain. But that's another story. Oh, dear. We have fun anyway. Leslie, sorry, have we left you anything to say on this one?
No, I've been listening with interest. I mean, I appreciate the things that people have picked up on, but the thing is that they're demonstrating the hobby to members of the public. They're not sitting down saying CQDX and all that stuff. Their head stuck in the radio. They're demonstrated to the public, and that's really the only way we're going to do things and get people's interest. If the members of the public can get their hands on and see what people are doing, that's great.
Yeah, certainly is, mate. Certainly is. So that's a good one. Right. Okay, coming back this side of the pond, RSGB features in the Times newspaper. An interesting article, and it was published online as well. Don't know if you read it, Leslie, but at least it's publicity for us, isn't it?
No, I haven't been able to read it yet. Apparently, you've got to sign up to it or something, and I didn't get round to that. So apologies this end.
Yeah. That was the only downside I found, is that you had to sign up to the Times Online, and you could get a free so many copies. And I thought, it's just going to be a pain having to kill the subscription afterwards. Mine, did you hear about this?
Yeah, I heard about it when I saw it in our running order this evening. To be honest, I'm not really interested in anything the RSGB do nowadays. I think, like Leslie, it's a shame that this hasn't happened in a public forum rather than on a website that is protected by a paywall and thus vastly restricting its potential audience. I know they claim here that it's got a potential audience with over 42 million. You telling me the Times has got 42 million subscribers? I don't personally believe that, but I haven't seen the article because it's protected by a paywall. But at least they're promoting stuff and they're trying to help get some facts together. And I suppose credit to the Times for reaching out and saying, "Hey, can you help us get some information correct so we're not just stabbing in the dark?" And at least they're reaching out to potentially the right people, I guess. But I'd love to read the article, but I can't get to it because I don't subscribe to the Times and I don't read newspapers because I find reading news in the real world just depresses me.
Right. Understood. We try not to depress you with these news stories, Martin.
Well, no, these news stories are fine, but you open, whether you open like your news website on your phone or you put the telly on or something, you're just listening. It's just doom and gloom.
Yeah.
It's just there's no, give me some fluffy rainbow unicorn kittens or something in the news just once, just something to make my day happier.
Yeah, true. And there you go on that one. Bill, what's your thoughts on this one? I know it's a UK story, but any thoughts?
Yeah, I was unable to read the article as well because of the paywall. So I actually don't know what they printed. However, just in general, in the abstract, any publicity I feel is better than no publicity about the hobby. So I think we're in good shape. And so I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, I think Heather tries to do a good job there to get the stuff promoted out there. Frank, have we left you anything to say on this one?
Oh no, but believe it or not, earlier in my career, I actually was quoted on the front page of the Times of London in a story, as well as on the front page of our equivalent, New York Times, in some academic, type of thing. And so I kind of approach it. I've also worked with the Times in their investigative reporting. So that's how I approach this. I didn't have to read the article to make the following comments. They spent a week with the science correspondent for the Times, Reese Blakely, spent a week working on this. Now, that's a significant amount of time for a major newspaper having the main correspondent for a topic area like the economy or science to spend on a story. That's point number one. And point number two, just the title tells you it's a generational story, and it's not, do they still do ham radio? I can't find it on my iPhone. It reads like it's attractive to a younger generation in terms of that. Looking at the potential exposure, 42 million, I can't vet that number. But the online audience, I have read some of the RSGB's assessment about, their online stuff. This was significant. And in a very big way, in my opinion, because it will have exposed people that just are oblivious to amateur radio. And it looks like it would be in a positive way in that it's now reaching a new generation. And gosh, we sort of need that kind of PR. So I kind of come at it from that point of view. The Times spent significant resources in researching and preparing the story. That's unusual and good on them. And good on the RSGB, Heather Parsons, as their communications manager, for being able to pull that off. I'm not sure over here on this side of the pond that the ARL has gotten things in the New York Times in a similar fashion. I would love to be wrong, but I don't recall it.
Yeah. Well, as I say, it's interesting. You think it's aimed at the younger listener. I'm thinking people who bought the Times newspaper, and I could be totally wrong here, Frank, but are probably of a more senior age.
Yeah, the readers are more senior, but the again, just taking the title, ham radio tunes into a new generation, and I could be wrong.
Yeah.
The focus is on it's reaching a new generation. It may be read by us older blokes and gals, but that was what I was saying. But I agree with you about the audience, Martin.
Yeah. But either way, this is another popular, good publicity for our hobby. So let's leave it there. Last one is, and the British Science Week is coming up soon. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact date for this, but it's a way of operating the STEM system, which helps children with science, technology, engineering, and maths. So I think this is a good one. The RSGB are also involved with this one. I'm going to say, Martin, do you want to go first on this one?
I was just trying to go to the website and see what they were planning. The website is quite sparse. It doesn't really say very much about what they're doing. Activities with the BBC Micro Bit V2, fitting messages to a FunCube satellite. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, we always say that the young are the future of our hobby. They have to be. Whatever promotes the hobby to new members and new it's not really members of the hobby, is it? It's like to new people coming into the hobby. It's got to be good. They say this year the theme for STEM is connections, which lends itself perfectly to wireless communication and amateur radio related activities. I would love to know more about the activities that they have planned, that they have put forward. Yeah, I never got to do that when I was a kid. You know, I sort of known about amateur radio because one of my friend's dads had like an amateur radio, so I sort of knew what it was, but we didn't get to do stuff like this. So I'd have, absolutely loved to do stuff. And they said they've got stuff here for children in early years, primary and in secondary school. So I'm guessing that's like from early years 5, maybe 6 years old up until secondary school, which is 15, 16. So yeah, be interested to see where it goes. But sadly, the website, that at least the link we've got here, doesn't list very much.
Right. But
oh no, there is an activity pack, but it's a bit of a hidden link.
Is it? Okay. Well, it's an interesting concept, this Science Week we have in the UK. Leslie, do you want to have a go at this one?
Well, I couldn't find the story apart from what you sent us, Martin, but it does seem a good thing. We've got to try and get new people into the hobby, yeah, including youngsters. Why not? And I'm glad the RSGB are doing it. It's a good thing. What else was I just spotted something else as well? I mean, we do have some issues here with safeguarding, so I don't think it's something that could easily be done at a club level without looking at certain areas. But certainly at the RSGB level, I think they could do it quite well. So I hope it continues. It's a good story.
Yeah. Well, on the safeguarding front, these things have to happen in schools. Us amateurs can help the teachers, I would suggest, by advising and maybe even doing some training for them so that they can then present better to the students and have a better understanding of some of the things we do. That's my theory anyway. And just looking at this, Bill, do you want to go next?
Yes, please. I like this one as well. I just love the idea of an annual week on science, technology, engineering, and math. And I wish all the UK clubs that are participating, I hope they have a lot of success and they get in front of a lot of folks over the whole week.
Yeah, me too, Bill. Me too. Frank, last words on this one?
Yes, it's going to take place between the 10th and 19th of March. And I agree with Bill and the other presenters. I really like this because science and technology tends to have an overhead to it. And let me give a contrast. If it were a literary group, not everybody has books in the home, but you're more likely to. And it's the kind of thing that you can get and buy and borrow from libraries. On the other hand, although libraries are getting into this, you might not be able to borrow it. Multimeters, circuit boards, soldering, things of the nature that it looks like they're going to be including. You almost have to have something like this for people that have had no exposure or little exposure. So it's a good strike, if you will, into the marketplace of young people, and it's a delight. I had a little bit of exposure, commenting on Martin's thoughts there. I had a little bit, but far too little in terms of exposure. I think I wet my pants when I first used a Geiger counter, but I never got over the experience. So good deal.
Martin?
Yeah.
Martin. Yeah, can I just add a few things? I did notice that some clubs are doing it. And I was sort of thinking about what I said earlier. And the reason I said what I said was that I think the RSGB's in a better position to advise the clubs on issues that the local clubs might not be aware of. That's what I was getting at, and I hope that's clear now.
Yeah, certainly is, Leslie, certainly is. And if you're an RSGB trainer, you're CIB checked as well. Anyway, as part of your training, becoming a trainer. But then you do have to do safeguarding, even with vulnerable adults, not just children, but vulnerable adults. There's certain safeguards you have to do, and it is important that you follow these for all parties.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sorry to be a bit sort of down at the end of that.
No, the idea is a good one. I think it's a great one. But like I said, I think there's certain advice that the RSGB would have that should be followed.
I agree totally. No problems. Okay, that concludes our news stories. Let's find out what the guys have been up to since we last spoke to them. And who am I going to go first with? Yeah, Leslie's getting worried, but I'll let you off this one, Leslie. Bill, Bill, what have you been up to since we last spoke to you?
So, let's see. It's been a month. So 2 weeks before the last recording, we had a windstorm on a Tuesday, and down came the big loop that I had up in the air, broke the Kevlar wire. So on Thursday, I went outside and I got replacement wire and got that all set up and was ready to go. And I went to throw a new rope up in the tree, and my knee gave out, and I came down and broke my wrist in 3 spots. So then the next one was the next recording we had actually didn't get pulled into a meeting. I was in the OR getting my wrist repaired. So we got all fixed up. I just got the cast off today. I'm in a splint for another few weeks, and I'm doing physical therapy. And I just want to remind all our listeners, as you're outside doing antenna maintenance, be very careful. Can't believe I fell, but you gotta be careful. I'm lucky I wasn't hurt worse. Still having trouble with the knee, but we're getting there. Radio wise, I didn't do much for most of January because I was laid up. I did work some soda stations in the mid-month and the end of the month. I also worked a few sideband stations on 12 meters and 15 meters. So the sunspots are back, and they're our friends. So we're getting some action there. Likewise, Bouvet Island's on the air right now, and I chuckle while I say it because it is a mess. 3 Yankees, 0 Juliet's on. They had a hard landing apparently, so they only have a couple stations set up, and they're not going to be able to stick around very long because of the long-term weather forecast. Looks like it's not favorable for sailing, so they're going to be there for a little bit, and then they will have to go for safety's reasons. But the reason why I mention this to the listeners is there's one thing there's one piece of advice I could give everybody on trying to get this super rare station that's on a DX island that no one ever gets to very often, and that is these folks will always be working split, period. There will never be a time when they will be listening on the frequency they're calling on, always split. Likewise, if they're on FT8, they're going to be using that Foxhound mode. So that's the two things I keep seeing folks when I try to listen to them, because I haven't been able to hear them yet because people are calling on the frequency and they're, yeah. they're not listening before calling, which is one of those things that's part of the DX code of conduct. But they're on the air for another, I think another 5 to 10 days, depending on the weather. So be patient, work them once, and consider yourself lucky. That's the other thing that drives me crazy is people that'll work them over and over and over again. It's like, I know your huge antenna array with 1.5 kilowatts will definitely get them. You got them once. Let some other folks get them. So that's the exciting station on the DX world right now. And I just wanted to share those few tips with folks. Listen. Call with your complete call sign. Back to you, Martin. Oh, and I have to jump out. So 7-3s, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. And
Bill.
And we'll catch up with you soon, Bill.
But thank you.
I'm glad you made it this week. All right, good information from Bill there about working a DX station. That was effectively good news. Frank, what have you been up to?
Well, I've been up to a couple of things. My wife got cataract surgery, and I've been promoted from butler to medical assistant, Martin. So I've been spending some time taking care of her, and that's sort of number one priority. But a couple of things I'll talk about here. I've been working with a member of my portable operations team, Clay, AC5Z. He's back in the States here in the Jackson, Mississippi area after spending 25 years as a missionary in Ukraine. Now, he was licensed as a ham all that time, but he might have been sent to a gulag under the Soviets for having a ham radio there. So he was out of the hobby for 2.5 decades. Now, he just moved to a new house, and he's got some tall pine trees around his house and no HOA. So we've just finished putting up an HF horizontal loop among 4 tall pines. And in the current Practical Wireless magazine, the March issue, I have an article that Don was kind enough to publish, and I use a portable Bluetooth-enabled antenna analyzer to get the bare wire impedance measurements at the ends of the loop and not just tag on ladder line or make some other assumptions about what the feed point impedance is. So we did those measurements, and I had a 4-to-1 balun on hand, and we looked at it and installed that and did some measurements, and he ordered a 6-to-1 balun from Palomar Engineering. I like those because, one, they handle a lot of power, but they have a 1-to-1 choke built into them. So you sort of got that all in one box. We just installed that 6-to-1 balun here just a few days ago, and it really reduced SWR on the fundamental frequency of 80 meters down around 2, and it's down about 1.1 and change on 15 and 20 meters. So we have been running the 4-to-1 balun and his IC7300 on Whisper at 5 watts, and it was being heard during the dark hours all over the United Kingdom and Europe, not on 20 meters, but on 80 meters. And then, of course, it hit Australia and Japan and Asiatic Russia and some other places on the bands that you might expect. But on that fundamental frequency, as Bill said, the sunspots are with us, and I was very impressed with how the antenna was working. So with the 6-to-1 optimization, he's going to do another Whisper beacon run with that final configuration to see how the antenna gets out. And just like one dog looking at another dog's bone, another portable ops team member, Mike N5DU, lives out in a rural area and has got plenty of space. And so he's next up for me working with them to put up a horizontal loop on HF. And Mike has a kilowatt to put into it. So fun and games on antenna building, Martin. I've been enjoying that. That's number one. Number two, we had our big rally, our Hamfest here in Jackson. About 750 people or so there. And in our ARL forum, our section manager, Malcolm W5XX, talked about something he had learned in North Georgia. A ham club there has been recruiting new hams from individuals using the General Mobile Radio Service, or GMRS. Here, you don't have to take a test. You just have to buy a license. And there are about 8,000 GMRS licensed operators in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains there in North Georgia. And so they've been going to some of their meetings and just kind of recruiting there, and have had a great deal of success. So it occurred to me, I know what the GMRS is as well as the family radio service, but I've never really looked at it very much. And so I went to the FCC website and downloaded the current license database for GMRS and for individuals. Now they have companies and organizations and other licensed classes in GMRS, but for individuals alone, there are about half as many individuals in GMRS as there are in amateur radio. There's about 337,000. So I'm completing a project. I'm just finishing up geocoding all of the individual license addresses. And what I was also amazed about is I began to look around at repeaterbook.com. They have some GMRS repeaters, but there's another website, mygmrs.com, that lists repeaters. And there's quite a number of them around the U.S. Many of them are bridged, and they have a national and regional set of network. Now, wow, very interesting. It seems to me this is a good potential market for local amateur clubs to look at GMRS in their area. These people are already using licensed radio. Many of them have GMRS repeaters. They're not unlike CB radio groups of a few decades ago. And it's sort of a shadow amateur radio element that's not officially ham radio as we practice it. But I dare say if amateur radio didn't exist, many of us might be GMRS license holders. So I'll finish up some of that work. I may look at how many are within 25 miles of a GMRS repeater, and that may be a proxy for more activity. And I'll publish something on it at k4fmh.com and likely put an interactive map at foxmikehotel.com when I'm done. It might be a good thing for the ARL to work with each division and section manager to do a mail out of an amateur radio brochure to each of these license holders, since it's public information, letting them know about the fun they can have by adding a ham license. It would be worth the effort, in my humble opinion. But will they listen? Probably not, Martin. It wouldn't have been the first time that happened. Back to you.
Yeah, you're probably right, Frank. But it was interesting you talking about this, because earlier in the week I was looking at an article that came up. It was GMRS versus the Family Radio Service, FRS, isn't it? And yeah, I quite enjoyed reading that article, so I now know a little bit more about it. You know, the GMRS boys on some of the frequencies can use up to 50 watts. Now, I know in the States amateurs can use 1.5 kilowatts, but in the UK, most of the rigs don't run more than 50 watts, mobile rigs. But the other thing is, often the car electronics, they say, don't run more than about 10 watts because you might upset the car electronics. So, interesting, Frank. But, yeah. Leslie, what's your thoughts on what you been up to?
Well, I'm going back to your previous comments, Martin. Yeah, I think certain power limits on 70 SEMs tend to throw cars a wobbly with their engine management systems. But never mind. What have I been doing? Well, I've still been working at our club shack, still trying to sort that out. Bit of a never-ending task, but it's got to be done. I can see improvements. We're getting people doing a bit more operating, a bit more HF. The VHF and UHF is up and running, and it's just a case of stuff has, should we say, been piling up, and it's got to be sorted. We are making progress, but it is slow, a little bit at a time, and I'm absolutely certain we will get there. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, I'm sure you will, mate. And yeah, sorting out a shack is a long-term project usually, because you don't get it right the first time. Oh dear. Martin, what have you been up to?
I'm delayed a bit because I've had COVID for the last week, and in fact I'm still testing positive for COVID at the moment, so I'm kind of keeping myself to myself at the moment, although I'm led to believe that it's probably no longer contagious because I've passed all the the government dictation as to when you can and can't go out. But either way, that's a whole other thing. But it is it did put me back by a bit. I've been on medium wave. Well, I say I've been on medium. I've been working, so I've been on proper radio. And I was thinking about it the other day. It's like, how many different frequencies am I going out on? Bear in mind, it goes out across the UK. I'm on AM in London. There's digital on 220, and then there's Freeview on 600 meg, and then there's the satellite stuff, that's 12 gigs, and then you've got your smart speakers like 2.4 and 5. So that's been quite a lot. That's quite a few bits of radio I've been on. But anyway, aside from the talk group as well, I was tuning around the other day, and one of the things that I always get really jealous of is when you hear people having long conversations, in-depth conversations, really good quality chats on HF. And, when you go on like local 2 meter 77s, you're generally always hearing the same people. If you put a call out, it's the same people that come back to you. Some of them, yeah, absolute great conversation. You can chat for hours. Others, not so much. And I've always looked to sort of I wanted to widen my horizon, have a chat with a few more people from a bit further out. And obviously the digital talk group, sorry, Leslie, allows you to do that. But, listen to HF, so how do other people get these conversations? And how do they find the people to talk to? Because I go on HF, I call CQ, someone comes back, says 5-9 next, and there's not even a contest on, talk to me. And they've gone. So I ventured onto 60 metres the other day, and my aerial is not really, it's an 80 metre off centre fed dipole, so it's not really tuned for 60 metres, but the modest tuner that is in the radio will tune it up. And
it will work.
Yeah, and it does. But I tell you what, I've had some really, really good conversations on 60 metres. And, it was obviously Envis. So, they weren't massively long way away. But, the first contact I had of it was Birmingham. What's that, a couple 100 miles? Or 100 miles or so? And, and then just a few slightly further afield. And I've had some really decent contacts. And there was nothing about, no signal report, and now I'm off to go and find someone else to give a signal report to. It was a genuine conversation talking about not just what we were using, but what's going on in the world. It's just everything in general. It was really enjoyable, and my love of HF has come back. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing. And say I've been watching a few amateur radio related videos on YouTube while I've been lying in bed, but other than that, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, Martin, 60 metres is like the HF version of 4 metres, isn't it? Not many.
Oh yeah, you get some amazing contacts. I mean, 4 metres is great when there's people on there, but yeah, 60 metres, it's you tune round and it's like, oh my god, you just have to remember because 60 metres is not a band. You've got spot frequencies within it, yeah. And weirdly, it's USB, not LSB. So you just have to remember. As long as you remember that, you're fine. So I've got my little cheat sheet printed out. Okay, that's where I can go. If someone's calling there, I can probably safe bet that's a frequency, but I will check just in case because I know I forget who else uses the 5 meg band. Who else uses that? Are we sharing it with the MOD? I can't remember who we share it with. Just being careful not to transmit where I shouldn't.
That's true. Well, it sounds like you guys have had some fun. Well, I've been, looks busy, but I'm sure my list isn't that busy. Carol, Edmund and myself were at the Canvey Island Rally in Essex at the weekend, and the feature's going to be some interviews I got with some interesting people at the start of the new season, and So hopefully that will be of interest. I have been sent a 23 SEMS collinear antenna for evaluation. That's going to happen in the next few days. Unfortunately, this week is a podcast release week, so this is one of my manic weeks. But as soon as we get that one done, probably next week I'll be on 23 SEMS a little bit, trialing that out, Martin. So I know you got 23 SEMS.
I'm listening for your call.
Yeah. Also, I bought a little Bluetooth adapter, and Ed gave me a lot of discussion about it after I bought it. I bought a little Bluetooth adapter to plug into my FT817. It plugs into lots of different radios, quite a few Yaesu radios, and I believe some Icon ones as well. You just plug it in the back, and you can run a program or cat control programs that will control your radio for you. Mine didn't work straight away, and as always, I took it up the club, and there were 10 people trying to tell me what I was doing, and you don't know how to use a mobile phone, Martin, because you're old and things like that. And they all sort of took it off me and one thing and another. So I've just put it back in the box, left it. Then I decided, while I was on my own, there was only one thing it could actually be. The Bluetooth software wants to set up for 9600 baud, and I just thought there must be a setting in the radio for the cat baud rate, and sure enough, my Life 17 was set for 4800. So the minute they were both set to 9600, they worked very, very well. So UK price, it cost me £13 off the major auction site. Yeah, it was just a bit of fun to try it out, and I've tried it out with me tablet as well, 7-8-inch tablet, and if you're out and about and you're of my age, the FT817 screen is a tad small. Other thing I spent a lot of money, Martin, and guys, I bought myself a new oscilloscope. I've been threatening to do this for a number of years. I just bought myself a dual beam 200 meg Siglant scope, and I've had
Good for you.
Yeah, I've had oscilloscopes for a long time, and then this one came, and it's got a 256 page manual because it does so many more.
Put that
things.
to one side. That'll come in useful for something.
Oh man, this thing is of a different league.
It'll auto figure the type of signal for you.
Oh yeah, it does all that sort of thing and all the extra things you can do and all the measurements you can do. Phenomenal. But I bought the 200 meg one, Frank, dual beam with the external trigger rather than the 4-band one without external trigger. That fits my world better.
Can I just say, Martin, an oscilloscope is a very expensive way of trying to find out where you put your glasses.
It is. Or usually on top of my head, though, mate.
Exactly. Just points an arrow at the top of his head.
Yeah. Been on the talk group, not as much as I'd like, guys. So any of you have been looking for me, I do apologise that it has been a bit manic the last 3 or 4 weeks. But hopefully we'll sort some things out on that. I'm planning, and I'm going to announce it here, and I told Mrs. B we should deny all knowledge that I'm doing it in a couple of weeks' time. 4th of March, I'm thinking of doing another 12-hour talk group session from 8 in the morning to 8 p.m., 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. UTC, and I'll be around, talk to as many people, or you guys talk amongst yourselves. You don't have to have me there, but I'll be on monitoring the 4th of March. And last but not least, the 12th of March, the ICQ team, or some of us, the more the merrier, will be at Hamzilla, which is down at Ashford in Kent, just off junction 10 of the M20. And there's a major rally there. And also, I've been asked to do one of the lectures in the lecture stream. So, yeah, if us giving you a couple of hours a fortnight isn't enough, you can get lectured at as well in the lecture stream. Hi. But yeah, we'll be there. Hopefully see some of you as well. So that's what I've been up to, guys. Quite a bit. So all that's left for me to do now is to thank the guys for joining tonight. I'd like to thank Mr. Martin Rothwell, M0SGL.
Thank you. Been fun.
Yeah, great fun, mate. I'd like to thank Mr. Frank Howell, K4FMH.
Thank you, Martin. Glad to be here, and glad that Bill Barnes is a bit on the mend after his injury.
Yeah, it was a horrible injury, but say at least Bill sounds quite happy again, so that's good news. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Leslie Butterfields, G0CIB.
Thanks for having me on, Martin. It's been a pleasure, and hope Bill gets well soon.
Yeah, we do, and I'll say, get well soon, Bill. I know that you're almost back to doing what you need to do. Right, all that's left for us to do now is say 73 to you guys and get on with the rest of the podcast. So I'll say 73 guys, and catch up with you soon.
Cheerio.
73.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
And now it's time for the news in brief from me, Colin M6BLY. Great news for people who love supporting DXpeditions and getting special call signs, etc. in their logbook. The 3 Yankee 0 Juliet team have arrived on Bouvet Island. Conditions have been difficult, and the team are currently, I would say, getting themselves up to speed so they can operate at full capacity. So their group have a Facebook page where they're posting lots of information on, and their media officer, a gentleman called Steve Haas, November 2 Alpha Juliet, said the team have enough power to operate 2 radios simultaneously. A storm is forecast to bring in high winds to a remote island, so the team is taking precautions. Some antennas may be taken down to prevent damage. So say lots of challenges for the team, but they've already logged 5,000 QSOs in the first 48 hours of operation, and they've been working CW on 17 meters and single sideband on 15. So we've got lots going on. They're even intending to operate FT8 during their stay there. So we'll put links, etc., to how to find out more information about what the group are up to, so you can get involved and potentially get this call sign and this DXpedition in your logbook. Now, just after we release on the 13th of February, it is World Radio Day, and this year's event is Radio and Peace. So the Euro group of radio amateurs, are taking part in this, and there's going to be some special event stations, particularly from Spain. They're going to have lots of operations going on the day. You find out more at worldradioday.org, which we'll put a link to from the ICQ podcast webpage. We finish up with news of educating our potential hams of the future with contacts from the International Space Station. 400 students in Brentwood Magna Elementary School in North Carolina listen to astronaut Kaiichi Wataka, I think it's pronounced, who answered questions regarding his experience on the space station. He tells students how he loves being in space, but is looking forward to taking a shower when he returns back to Earth in March. Dr. Josh Casada was talking to students from the Norwich Free Academy in Connecticut, and he passed on some very valuable advice considering his career as a Navy test pilot, etc., getting him across to being an astronaut. He gave him this sage advice of do the things you love to the students, and during his contacts there. He also spoke about cargo vehicles making frequent trips to resupply the astronauts on the International Space Station. So a great opportunity of using our wonderful hobby to communicate back to Earth and get the kids of the future interested in what we do. Right, we head on to our features episode, and we're reporting from the Canvey Island Rally, and hope you guys enjoy as always, and enjoy our feature.
And now what you've all been waiting for, this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast. Hi guys, this feature is just a collection of interviews that I did at the Canvey Island Rally, which I think you'll enjoy very much. Okay, I'm at the Canvey Island Rally, and I've just met up with the chairman of the Canvey Island Rally Club, or the gentleman here, Brian, G7IIO. Brian, tell us about the club and the rally. So what are you doing here today?
Well, we're running a radio rally for all amateurs who want to come and buy equipment or what have you, and just join up with other friends. The club was initiated in 1982, I believe, and I've been a member since 1993, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And we do lots of outside events in the summertime, a few field events in the summertime. Our first one's normally the windmills on air one, which is done at Rayleigh Windmill in about May, I think it is. And and the club I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I started off just as an ordinary member, and I was asked to be on the committee. I joined the committee. I eventually got voted on as the chairman for a while, and then I've now become the president, which I've held for 2 years now, I believe. And we've got this rally, and we've got quite a few traders here today, and lots of visitors to come and buy stuff from the traders. I understand from one or two of the traders they're not doing too bad for the event.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, it's just a lovely event. We did this one about 3 years ago, and then the pandemic hit, and obviously things weren't happening. It's well attended. I'm pleased to see that people are now making the effort to get out here, because it's well attended. There's a lot of stuff here worth having, and it'll certainly help your club going forward doing that, won't it, Brian?
Yes, I hope so. As I say, this is the first one for about 3 years now, but it's a lot of effort in by our organiser, Tony, who is our organiser, has done a great job in organising this rally this year, and other people that's joined him. So it's been good overall. There's quite a few visitors here, which I'm glad to see, which in some ways I didn't expect to see so many visitors. And all the traders turned up as well, fortunately.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping to catch up with Tony a little bit later. We'll have to hear what he's got to say. What I will say is we always get a warm welcome when we come to Essex. Tony is always very chatty. We've seen lots of people we know here. And with a bit of luck, I'm also going to catch Pete Sipple from Essex Hams later. He'll be around for a chat as well.
He's a member of our club anyway.
Yeah, he does a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a member of the club anyway. Although he doesn't do any active part, he doesn't involve us in some of the things he gets on with. So there we are, yeah.
Yeah, so as I say, out here in Essex, a lot of you guys all work together, which is good news. And as I say, that's a great news. Listen, Brian, I'm going to let you get back to enjoying watching what's going on and a bit of peace. But thanks for giving us a quick chat and letting us know what's going on here.
Well, that's been a pleasure to do this for the podcast people, and glad that we got somebody here to do that. So, and I'll say thanks, and thank you for everybody that's come, and the podcast people, and all traders, because that's what helps make the event, and also helps keep our club financially stable, I should think.
Yeah, that's great. Well, don't forget, guys, if you missed it this year, it'll be on next year, I am sure. Okay, thanks, Brian, for your time. I'm with Stuart down here on Canvey Island. First rally for us this year, and Stuart's the Public Relations Officer for VMARS. And I normally manage to catch Stuart when we're about our first rally. Is this your first rally of the year?
It is actually. It is the first of the year, and unfortunately, it should have been one of two this year. We normally go to the Netherlands to our sister group, the Surplus Radio Society, but sadly, for operational and logistical reasons with passports, we're stuck on that at the moment. We hope to go later in the year, but it is one of the first of the year. It's an important rally, especially for the Essex hams, and we always come and support the Essex hams, and also put on a VMARS information stand, which, as you have seen yourself, produced a great crowd.
It certainly has. It certainly has. And your good lady has been very, very busy today. Yeah, she'll keep me from hassling you while you've been talking to the public.
Well, this is the problem. You start talking and there's a never-ending stream of visitors to the stand. Not only VMARS members, but also people interested in vintage and ordinary hams who we know on the social side of things of the normal ham radio operating.
Well, see, as I'm not a VMARS member, am I just an ordinary ham?
Well, I think you ought to be a blinking honorary member by now, you know. I mean, how long have we been doing this now? It's got to be nearly 20 years. So, you know, it's always a pleasure to see you, though.
Yeah, it's fun coming and chatting to you guys. And you got always have some interesting equipment on your table to have a look at. You know, even if this doesn't float your boat, there's some lovely old pieces of gear here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, today, as an example, we've got the ART-13, which is the American Collins piece of equipment. Used to go into various American aircraft in wartime, B-17s, etc. We also have some ham equipment, which is Pete, my colleague.
Heathkit, Mohican, a Heathkit Comanche, and a Heathkit Cheyenne. Transmitter and receiver.
Very rare pieces of equipment. And then we also have on display, we have a Polish clandestine set from World War II, an AP5 in immaculate working condition, and gives a good account of itself on air. Crystal control, various voltages supplied to the equipment. And we've also got a little EC10 Eddystone on display. But you're absolutely right. When people come along, they talk about the equipment, and then various conversations ensue about restoration, missing widgets inside the equipment, where can you find them. Before you know it, we sign them up as a VMARS member if they're not already.
Yeah, well, let's hope you do well on that. Now, what other rallies are you doing this year? Because I often catch up with you at the National Hamfest in the UK and McMichael, but others you doing?
Yeah, well, you spoke about the National Hamfest. Well, of course, we know that this year it won't be at Newark. It will actually be now at the Peterborough Showground, which I've never been to before. So we're looking forward to that. And, of course, as you know, the National Hamfest is always a great gathering for radio hams. And, again, another social event, because my wife and I, we work on the Hamfest team. We all have our various jobs to do, and we do them with extra vigour, but it's great because we're there for 2 or 3 nights, and there's also the evening social aspect as well, where you go out with other hams, you have dinner, and you chew the fat about ham radio, as well as normal day-to-day things. But Peterborough, you mentioned, there's Newbury coming up, there's the McMichael Rally, we've got some regimental reunions which we're doing ourselves for Grenadier Guards. That'll be great, and hopefully we're going to the coronation.
Yeah, well, it sounds...
We've already had the invite, and we will go to His Majesty's coronation. I don't know how close we're going to get, but we shall be there 100% supporting the monarchy, and long may it continue.
Yeah, that sounds really great, Stuart. Well, listen, this is just a quick one this time, because it has been busy here, and I look so I frightened everybody away with the microphone, so I'm going to leave you in peace, and hopefully it'll all come back. But we'll catch up with you in the year.
Absolutely, not a problem, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you soon, Stuart.
ICQ. Do you?
Right, well, those of you who can do Morse will understand what that is. Me being a mere failure at Morse, I'm going to have to apologise. I'm with Essex CW and with Andy from Essex CW. Andy, tell us about Essex CW.
Essex CW is a club which was formed a few years ago, and we help all those people who are interested in CW. A lot of people learnt Morse code years ago and want to come back, and we build up their confidence so they can get on the Morse key again.
Well, that sounds good. Now, I know I have had people try and teach me Morse in the past. I'm a bit of a failed cause, but I actually do think that there is a real importance that Morse is still very valid. And I know lots of people, now it's not part of the exam, there's probably more people wanting to do it because there's no pressure to learn it these days, is there?
You're quite correct there, and the Telegraph apparently recently has been doing an article on Morse code. There's been on the radio lately, and I'm getting inquiries from the public rather than amateurs who want to learn Morse code, which I found was a bit strange. So perhaps I'll have to start classes just for non-amateurs. But we do classes on a Thursday night using Skype. We teach from the beginner to those who just want to get on the key and build up their confidence.
Well, that sounds good. Now, one thing I used to find when we were teaching the foundation course and we had to do a Morse appreciation with students, the youngsters, the very youngsters used to love Morse code because they think it's something secret their parents won't understand.
You're quite right there. I know my granddaughter messes about with her friends sometimes sending Morse code, and I had a message in Morse code for my grandson yesterday. So the children seem to be very interested in it.
Yeah. Well, their brains are much younger than mine, and it probably soaks it up that much better. But I think if you're musical, if you have a musical background, you probably find it easier than somebody that doesn't have a musical background. I've heard that quite a lot, but I did read something a few years ago when somebody went all against that theory. So it's a debatable subject, I think. Yeah, well, I think my problem is that I'm so busy that when I sit down to try and listen to Morse, I relax, and that's fatal. I'm off to Kip fairly quickly.
Yeah, I understand that. But that's a way of learning Morse code as well. If you have a little Morse code in an earphone in your ear while you're watching your television, your brain gets used to the characters. So that is another way of getting your brain used to Morse code.
Yeah, well, I haven't said I'm never going to do it, but it's great fun. So, in fairness, you've got more courses running this year for amateurs in the UK?
We are in the process of finishing a course at the moment, and I think we can only really do one course a year because although we teach the Morse in 8 weeks, to build up the confidence to use it at 18 words a minute takes a little bit longer. So I think we're going to stick to one course a year.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. But as I say, at least you're fulfilling a need in the market for us all in amateur radio. But great talking to you, and I wish you every success going forward.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to talk to you.
No problems. Well, I'm still at the rally at Canvey Island. Edmund's just come back to me and said, "Mine, you got to talk to this gentleman." So, in true ICQ interviewing format, I'm stuck because Emma's just wandered off, and I'm terribly sorry, sir. I don't even know your name.
My name's Paul. Call sign is G7BHE, and your fine comrade on your podcast overheard me talking to Pete from Essex Ham because we're both podcasters, and then I saw your colleague turn up and he said, well, maybe you should come over and Martin can interview you as well. So as we're all podcasters together, I was like, well, let's do that then.
So Edmund managed to fit me up well and truly. No, Paul. No, Paul. No, it's great to find out what other people are doing. And I know you do more than just amateur radio, which is something that's also interesting to our listeners, because there is more to it than just calling CQ and working the odd person, isn't there?
I completely agree. I've come to this this hobby. So I've been a amateur radio operator since I was 16, I think, and radio has been a real part of my life. I'm a broadcaster as well, radio broadcasting, and also I have a book on radio which is on Amazon. I have a website about amateur radio. It's a real part of my life. So, but podcasting's a great thing. I have a podcast on the paranormal, which of course is completely different, but not just one hobby for me.
Well, that's good. That's good. And yeah, I know Pete's been in broadcasting as well.
He has, yeah.
Unfortunately, I never was. So I was one of these people that 14 and a half years ago got into this pure by accident and have stumbled along the way. But doing other things like your paranormal podcast, gives you something else of an extra interest, I suggest.
It really does. I think it's nice to have a real variety of things that you can do in your spare time. Amateur radio is something that I do from home, but also when I'm on holiday in Ireland. I do HF from Ireland predominantly. At home, I'm stuck doing VHF and UHF because of the antenna situation, as I live in an apartment. So broadcasting I still do. I've got a radio show every Saturday afternoon on a station in Cambridgeshire, and it just keeps me really busy, away from the day job and sort of other interests that I've got.
Yeah, well, busy people are always busy. And, so you talk about your book on Amazon. Well, I got seconded into putting one up on Amazon as well. We've got one of the ICQ books up there. Is it just purely on Kindle, or are you selling it as a paperback copy?
No, it's Kindle and paperback, and the idea of this book is to do with the world of prepping and wild camping and bushcraft. So there's a real need within those communities, the outdoor communities, for radio communications. And what a lot of people have been doing up until now is going into a camping shop, for instance, and buying a twin pack of PMR 446 radios. And then, you get the complaints that they don't go very far. So for prepping and amateur radio have got a real history together, especially in the US. So what I've tried to do is bring that to the UK as well. There's a real big prepping community here, as well as an outdoor community. So filled that niche with a book on how to get into amateur radio, where to get training from, and the real basics of radio communications and advice on what radios to buy, etc. So the book's doing well. It's called Prepcoms UK, which is also the name of my website, prepcoms.co.uk. And we work really closely with Essex Ham, and a lot of people come from Essex Ham to us to get radios, as we program radios as well for people. And equally, people who come into the hobby via my side of things, I can put them to Essex Ham for training. So it works really well.
Certainly sounds it. And yes, people, there are different modes of radio that people can use. And for our American listeners, or for people outside the UK, I should say, listeners, PMR 446 is our license-free. It used to be 8 channels. I believe it's 16 now. You're allowed half a watt, and you're not allowed to do any modifications to the radio, like change the antenna. The antenna is physically fixed. So they say, depending on who's trying to sell it to you, they'll say it's, say, 3 kilometres. I've had better results when I've been on out in the clearing on hilltops. But most of the time, you're lucky more than half a mile, really, I would say, wouldn't you?
I would too. And for your American listeners, then you're sort of comparing PMR to FRS, which is the Family Radio Service, and GMRS as well. So, depending on the terrain, It's really important to know about height versus distance and line of sight and things like that, and all of that's explained in the book. And then we go into things like repeaters, how repeaters work, programming radios. It's a real book for the beginner, if you like.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Now, I would always suggest, if you're going out and you're doing this hiking or whatever, I live in Surrey, which is one of the busiest counties, heaviest populated counties, and I often say there is often no cellular service. So you need to take something with you. If you're going out walking, I would suggest, even if it is these low-power, license-free walkie-talkies, think about taking them with you. They are another option for you to call for an emergency service if you need it. So that's where I'd be going on that one.
I completely agree with you. One of my part-time interests is I'm a volunteer with the Coast Guard. So calling for assistance is obviously something that's very close to my heart. And I know we were talking off air about the different radio services that are available, like CB, Marine, and all of those others. And we were discussing about whether we saw any demarcation between those types of service and the way that we view others. And I tend to find that, CB radio users are natural hams just as much as hams are, and vice versa. There's plenty of hams who use CB too, and in an emergency situation, it matters not what name is written on the box or how it works, as long as it does work and that people can communicate with each other. I find it very interesting that as we progress with communications, that we're moving over to voice over IP telephones. Yeah, so the old analog telephone as we know it is going to go. But that's reliant upon having an electric supply in the house, whereas the old telephone, if you had a power cut, the phone still worked.
Yeah.
So radio communications is one way around that. If you've got a family member who's, say, within a mile away and you've got a pair of Baofeng radios, you can chat to each other.
Yeah, that's another option. But the thing is, and as we were saying, if somebody's interested in radio, we shouldn't chase them away. Our hobby, or the thing we're interested in, is radio. Okay, I do amateur radio, but anybody who's interested in radio, we should communicate with, because not everybody has a technical background and will do a full license in the UK. Not that you need to. You can get a foundation license, which is not given away with a packet of cornflakes, as some people suggested years ago. It is. You do have to work for it, but there are options, and any form of communications is certainly knowledge. So I would suggest that's a good thing.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And knowledge is key to prepping. One of the main things in prepping is about building up your own skill set, whether it's mechanics and knowing how to mend your car, but also with radio communications, being able to put people in the direction of Essex Ham to get them through with their foundation license, to give them a basic idea of how SWR works, the resonance of antennas. It's a skill set that they can hold on to. Like you said, they don't have to go on and do the full. They can stay where they are with at least some knowledge and an understanding of why you wouldn't connect a CB antenna to a UHF antenna. A CB radio to a UHF antenna, for instance. You know that they're not going to work together. For prepping, that's ideal. It's a real skill set to have.
Yeah. Well, it sounds good, Paul. And listen, I know this is only a short interview. Maybe we ought to do a longer one at a later date, but thank you very much for your time. I appreciate what you said. I'm sure it'll start people thinking.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
The ICQ podcast. Come for a moment. Stay for an hour.
Well, down in Canvey Island, I've managed to walk outside and cajole Pete Sipple, Yes, Martin Rothwell, I did get his name right. Pete's Essex Hams. It's great to catch up with you, Pete. It must be at least 3 years. How are you doing?
It's been a while, hasn't it? It's been a long while. There's this virus thing got in the way a bit, but, we're back to normal now. It's all good.
Yeah. And you can tell from Pete's voice and my voice, we are giggling helplessly in the car park. As we always do. So, the joke was that our podcasters don't get on. We do, don't we, Pete?
Absolutely we do. And to be honest, rallies are great because you can just sit outside. They're in there doing whatever they're doing. We're having a good old gossip and a whinge outside. And, life's good. But we all get on. And I think as a community, we all need to. It's troubling times for the world of amateur radio at the moment. So it's all good to have a laugh and a joke. And today, for me, has been kicking ideas around with other people about how to kind of reinvigorate the post-COVID sort of spark, I guess.
Yeah, I go along with that. And, I think there's a lot you and I probably will have in our minds that going forward we will do things as people get more and more excited to come out and about. But tell us, what's been going on with Essex Hams during the COVID virus problems?
So, as you know, maybe one or two of your listeners don't, but we launched as a virtual club that would pretty much live online and do other field activities in the area and try and get all the clubs in the area to work together. COVID was a complete game changer for us because a few years before COVID, we launched an online course, which would be to help people that were studying at a club and maybe wanted to go home and do some homework. When COVID hit and all the clubs shut and RSGB went with online exams, we found every student in the country was just hitting our website. So from a course that had 10 people a month, we were getting 600 every 2 weeks. It was bonkers, and it still is. So I'm talking to you now. I know when I get home this afternoon, I have to release course number 130, and I have 118 students ready to start this afternoon. So it's been bonkers.
Wow. That is something, Pete. And I didn't realise it was that busy. And truthfully, being an RSGB trainer as well, we haven't done so much because we found that people don't want to commit to the time of coming to a course, say 4 days. If a course runs 4 days, they might turn up 2, and then they complain at you because they haven't learnt it all. Whereas online, I suppose they can do it at their own time.
Absolutely right. And it's been a challenge. So some people want to learn in a classroom. Some people want to teach in a classroom. I'll be honest, I learned it in a classroom. To me, that was actually the right way of me learning. I actually quite liked chatting to the invigilators and the trainers. And actually, I'm quite a touchy-feely. So picking up things and twiddling radio knobs does it for me. Online, obviously, you don't get any of that. But what you do get is the ability to watch stuff over and over again. So if you don't understand something, you can pause the course, read up on it, find another website, watch a YouTube clip, and go back to it. So the actual core knowledge you get from learning online works, but what you're missing is the getting some help. What radio do I buy? How do I put my first antenna up? Because you can't really do that over the internet, and therein lies one of the problems.
Yeah, I go along with you. Well, we try to put on a practical course because I still think the practicals were valid, and we offered it last year, and we offered it to the whole of anybody, anywhere. We had 2 replies. Now that to me sounds a bit rough, and it's a shame because so many people do get so much out of the practicals, and I know we don't have to do them anymore. I never did it when I did my RAE, but I thought it was important.
So here's the whinge. This is me on my soapbox. To me, I'm hearing a lot from the clubs, exactly the same. Not getting the people coming through the door, offering to do things and it not being taken up. And some of the blame being put on the kind of online learning and online studying. And I totally get it. But to me, I see it the other way around. I see there's now a golden opportunity for clubs and for the hobby in general. Because somebody can now, if they learn about amateur radio, instead of what they used to have to do, which is find a local club, wait 6 months for their foundation course to come around, take the time off work or away from the family to go to the club and do it, may not be at a convenient time, whatever. Sit in a club and be taught PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint, and then sit an exam in a hall where it's all a bit scary, and then get a license. Now, if someone's interested, they can get a license in a couple of weeks, which is wonderful, but they then don't have a clue what they're doing. So to me, the opportunity for clubs is they can now say, just got your license, come and have a play. And instead of having to get somebody in, encourage them to spend money on their club's training course and then have them on a waiting list, you can get them in that day and get them touching a radio, having a go. Things, to me, what a club now should be doing is show and tell, is open days, come and have a look, antenna building sessions, whatever else. But these people are all trained and keen. So why don't more clubs embrace that and get them to do something useful, hands-on, and it's minimal effort. You don't need invigilators, you don't need registered assessors, exam secretaries. Stick something up on the website. We're having a radio, bring and, show and tell, bring and buy, whatever it is. Punt it out to the people that have got their qualifications in the last year or so locally. You'll fill the room. To me, I don't understand why that opportunity is being missed.
Well, yeah, I think you're right, and we are missing. I mean, silly little things like we have a hobby of radio. Now, I'm going to use radio, not amateur radio. I tell you now, Pete, that I will work an M7 with a newly licensed foundation license holder. I will work an M7 over a G3 or a G4. Nothing against you G3s and G4s or any other call sign. Yeah. But a foundation license holder needs operation experience. And they don't need to be given grief if they get it slightly wrong. Nobody's going to die. If they're operating poorly, just cajole them nicely and help them through it. That's one thing. And it's not only that, I publicise stuff up onto the internet occasionally in Facebook. Now, for most people, you're going to hate me for saying this, but I do this. Now, I also publish into some CB groups. I get lots of publicity and positiveness from the CB guys knowing what we're doing and being interested in what we're doing. And I get grief sometimes from some of the amateur radio groups for doing it. We're shooting ourselves in the foot, aren't we, Pete?
You're absolutely right. Everything you're saying there, if this was video, you'd see me nodding frantically to this. I mean, Facebook is so toxic at the moment when it comes to amateur radio. But this is the thing, is we're all in it together. We all want to see the hobby grow and succeed. Yes, okay, we might not be into certain modes. I'm a fan of some and not of others, but I'm not intolerant of people that want to use a different mode or do something different. But this isn't amateur radio, or my club's better than your club, or so-and-so's doing this online, and it's just bonkers. We all should be getting on. If all that energy went into actually promoting the hobby, Club A next door to Club B, instead of warring and throwing bricks over the wall at each other, actually saying, you do something in January, we'll do something in February, and we'll both do something joint in March, and all that kind of stuff. It is amazing that this just doesn't happen, and it's so soul-destroying. For me, I'm helping newcomers get into the hobby. I run a survey after they've been licensed for 3 months. They get a survey saying, how are you getting on? And the number of times I get, we don't feel welcome at the club, or no one will talk to us on the air because we've got an M7 call sign, or don't know what I'm doing, so I've given up. And you think these enthusiastic people just need a little bit of a help and a bit of a hug and a bit of their local club to do something for them, and jobs are good. But it just seems to be a real struggle, and I don't get it. I really don't.
No, and I think the problem is that you and I can see it. I don't think a lot of other people do see it. I don't know where we're going to go on this one. Maybe maybe you and I need to have a think about, maybe is there something we can do to promote the hobby? Because we both agree that it needs doing. It's our hobby. Why are we as amateurs treating people so badly at times? That's where I'm coming from, Pete. But interesting conversation, and without you upsetting the world, I think you very valid points.
I'll get off my soapbox now. But apart from that, everything's great. I mean, today's been great. It's been absolutely lovely being back at a rally after 3 years, seeing particularly the newcomers that have done the online course with us, coming over and say, I've had so many people come up, shake my hand, thank you so much, wouldn't have been in the hobby without you. And that, to me, is just absolute gold. plus catching up with a whole bunch of people I haven't seen for a while, seeing what some of the other groups are up to, hunting around for a bargain. When you caught me with your big orange microphone, I had a mouthful of bacon and a sausage sandwich, but it is good, and it's nice to see things slowly returning to normality. Good turnout at this particular rally. So hopefully the sun is shining. We might have a good and healthy amateur radio year in 2023. Let's be positive. Woohoo!
Yeah, I agree with you, Pete. Listen, taking enough of your time, and I know Mrs. B's are probably looking for me at the moment, so I'm going to say thank you very much for your time, Pete. Please keep in touch.
Oh, I certainly will, and I'll bring my soapbox with me next time as well.
That'll be great. Thanks, Pete.
Whether it's across the pond or over the channel, the ICQ podcast is international.
Herzlich willkommen in Deutschland.
Good evening.
73 de España.
By amateurs, for amateurs.
Well, I've just managed to catch up with Tony. Having spoke to Brian earlier, I said I was going to catch up with Tony. Tony's the organiser of the rally down here at Canvey Island, a member of the Sears Club. And Tony, I think it's going really well today.
Yeah, really pleased. Really pleased. We've got more traders here than we've had in the past. So we're up on table sales, which is great. Plenty of people through the door. Won't know the final figures on that just yet. Another couple of days, I suppose, before I get those in. So yeah, and everybody seems to be having a really good time.
Yeah. I think everybody is. It's very laid back. There's no panic. People are wandering around having chats with each other. As you say, there's a lot of traders here, and it's just a generally good, relaxed atmosphere.
Yeah, I'd agree, 100%. There's lots of chats going on in all the hallways. There's plenty of room in the aisles. We've left plenty of space between the tables for people to move around. So, yeah, we try and make it, as you say, as easy as possible for people, and just a nice environment for people to come along and have a good Sunday.
Which is good because, you know, after the 2 to 3 years of the pandemic and a lot of these things being shut down, I think we have to come back and support these because it's a matter of use it or lose it. And you've put on a really good show here. I'm hoping that it's happening next year, and probably it is. But this is the sort of thing that really brings us all together, not only talking on the radio, but actually catching up with other amateurs while you're at these rallies.
Yeah, I've met some old friends I haven't seen for a few years due to COVID. We tried to put one on last year, but with things the way they were, we unfortunately had to cancel that just before the Christmas. So yeah, it's the first one in 3 years, and there's definitely a hunger for it. Hopefully we're one of the first of the season, so hopefully we'll see an upturn as the year progresses and as time progresses. Yeah, I think it's good, positive feedback. I can give them. I don't know what else to say on that. But yes, it's going well. So I can't tell you how many people have come in at this moment. I don't know, but there was a very long queue this morning at the door at 10 o'clock. Yeah, there's an air of excitement. People are pleased to be back. People are happy. They're enjoying the environment. There's lots of stuff here. There's radios. There's the junk boxes that people love to dig through. So yeah, there's everything the proper ham could want.
There certainly is. And while you and I are sitting here just chatting, I've been watching people walking out between the two halls with boxes of stuff and smiles on their faces. So I think this has been a success, or is going to be a success, Tony.
Yes, definitely. But it's going to be a success anyway because it's the first one we've been able to put on for the 3 years. We've thoroughly enjoyed it. There's the next one to look forward to, but I think there's the clearing up of this one first. Never anybody's favourite point in time.
No, I appreciate, but no, it's great fun. And I'd like to thank you for inviting us down. I know we come to support you, but thanks for inviting us.
Well, yeah, thank you for supporting us. Thank you for coming along. And yeah, great podcast. Yeah, wish you all the luck with it. And hope it goes from strength to strength, like our rally.
I hope so. Well, We're at 14 and a half years now, just over 14 and a half years of podcasting. Let's hope we're doing this again next year, the pair of us. And that'll be 15 and a half years for me, and probably a lot more rallies for you.
It will be the 37th rally that Sears have put on. I haven't been running them all that time. I've only done the last few. But 37 that will be. So it'll be the first Sunday of February next year. Everybody keep your diaries clear, and let's do a good one.
Well, there you go. Tony's told you. 1st February next year. And one last thought to leave you on. I screwed up when I published this on Facebook. I put it was the 6th. And you wouldn't be surprised how many people contacted me and said, no, it's the 36th.
Hey, I've done it. I actually had somebody say I put the wrong date on one of our flyers. Thankfully, they were looking at an old flyer. It wasn't the one I'd just put out. So I did get the date right. But it was the 5th.
Yeah. Well, we're all here on the 5th and enjoying ourselves. Listen, thanks, Tony. And best of luck for next year as well.
Thank you very much, and thanks for coming along, and hopefully see you next year.
We hope. Well, while I'm over at Caney Island Rally, the Sears Rally over here, I also came across Emily, and we're going to visit Emily in a couple of months' time down at the Hamzilla Rally. And I've been to the Hamzilla Rally last year, and we also did other things that you guys do, the fun day in the park. So, Emily, please tell us what's going to happen at your rally in a couple of months' time.
Hi there. So our rally is in Ashford. We've moved. We've always been in Sandwich at the Discovery Park, but now we've moved to the Julie Rose Stadium in Ashford, which is junction 10 off the M20, so very easy to get to now. And there's plenty of parking that I'm sure everyone will be happy about. At our rally, we have got CCOM antennas, ICOM, SDR Play, among many others, who I've been signing up some people today as well. So Essex CW will be there. They're going to be doing a demo. We've got people speaking as well. So Ian Keezer, our very own Ian Keezer, G3ROO, or ROO, I should say, Roo. He is going to be doing a talk on antennas, although I should really call them aerials, otherwise I'll get in trouble. We've got Stuart Bryant coming down, who's the president of the RSGB, but he's going to be talking on behalf of his club. I think he's going to be doing a talk on WhisperNet. And we've also got Dave Stockley talking as well about the ICOM story. So we've got a few things going on top of the rally, as well as all the usual rally shenanigans that go on. We've got some talks, and we've also got a build-a-thon. And if anyone would like to join in with the build-a-thon, they need to sign up in advance via our website, which is hamzilla.uk.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Well, I'd love to have a go at the build-a-thon, but I think I'm a bit too old and ugly to do that. But no, that just sounds like lots of fun things are going to be had on your day out there. And Junction 20 on the M20 is certainly a lot nearer for me, so I'm not complaining. But no, guys, make the effort to go. It should be a well worth thing. I didn't realise you were having talks as well. So, it's good.
We planned to last few years, but with everything that's been going on, we've been a bit, hesitant about it. But this year we thought we'd put the boat out and get some people in, because who doesn't love a talk? And I think it's something different that people come to, and just to hear people speaking about the bit of the hobby that they like best, I guess.
Yeah, I think this is maybe a future of rallies these days, is that, okay, we can always go and we like rummaging through the boxes for all the bits for ourselves, but the rallies are also about socialising and finding out about new things. So putting the talks on, I think, is something that's going to be well worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I was from when I took over coordinating Hamzilla, it was one of the things I was most excited about, actually. It was organising the talks, because I just think, it adds that extra element, and it keeps people there for longer during the day as well. So, hopefully it will, it will make a full day of it, really, rather than, maybe people heading off a bit early. We'll keep people there a bit longer, and as you say, have people socialising with each other more. I've got something to talk about.
Yeah, we certainly will. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Tell us the date again and the website where people can find out more about you.
It's on Sunday, the 12th of March. Early bird tickets mean you can come in from 9:30. Regular tickets, you can come in from 10. And it's down the M20, Junction 10, at the Julie Rose Stadium in Ashford, very close to the William Harvey Hospital.
And that's in Kent in the UK for you guys who live outside the UK, guys. But, yeah, we're looking forward to it. Well, thank you very much, Emily, for that. And as I say, we'll see you down there on the day.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Martin.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the flavour of the rally we've just been to. All of us at the ICQ podcast are looking forward to a number of other rallies we'll do throughout the year and hopefully bring you some more information.
Well, everybody, I really hope you enjoyed our feature there on the Canvey Island Rally. We're out and about again, and the guys in the UK there are proudly showing their orange shirts and, as I say, getting an opportunity to see what's going on in the world. Feel free to catch up with your favourite ICQ podcast presenters at a rally in the future there, and you can tell them about what you like about the show, or more importantly, what you love about the hobby, and they'd love to hear from you there. No, it's not just the Canvey Island Rally we've committed to. We've got some other things coming up over the next few weeks, Dad. And I know you're out and about again, plus news about the Digital Talk group as well.
Yeah, yes, certainly, Colin. Well, we thoroughly enjoyed ourselves at Canvey Island Rally. That was great fun. And our next rally in the UK we will be attending. I know the guys in the States attend rallies as well. But the next rally we will attend is Hamzilla at down near Ashford in Kent in the UK, just off Junction 10 of the M20, and that is Hamzilla. Looking forward to that. But the week before that, I'm planning to do a 12-hour session on the talk group like we've done before. And if we run it for 12 hours, it means that, very few people sleep for 12 hours. So you should be able to find some part of the world to join us. And that's going to happen on the 4th of March. So 4th of March, I have noticed that we've had quite a few different call signs joining us. But guys, this is not the busiest of talk groups, but if you don't put a call through, you're not going to get answered. I've spotted many a time that people have just blipped it to listen, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But, if I don't hear you, I won't be able to go back to you, will I? Hi. Anyway, that's what we're up to at the moment. The talk group on the 4th of March and Hamzilla on the 12th, Colin.
Yeah, so make sure, guys, you pop those dates into your diary, and so we would love to catch up with you guys on those days, so that'd be great fun there. Right, well, as always, we'd like to thank everybody that helped us put the show together. So we'd like to thank, of course, our monthly and annual subscription donors, and your donations at the ICQ podcast help us pay our way, and we greatly appreciate that. You can do the same as well, and we ask for a very simple process. Turn the value that you got from our show into a monetary figure, and then go along to icqpodcast.com/donate, where that donation that you send our way goes towards our running costs, etc. So also we hope you consider us off for doing that. We'd also like to thank Martin, Mike 0 Sierra Golf Lima, Frank Kilo 4 Foxtrot Mike Hotel, Bill Whiskey Charlie 3 Bravo, and Leslie Golf 0 Charlie India Bravo for taking part in the News Roundtable. So many thanks, guys, for your very kind donation of time to what we do there. So we really do appreciate that from there. Now, the best way of keeping up to date with what we're doing in terms of the news and the events, etc., is make sure you subscribe to our newsletter. Again, very easy to do. Go to icqpodcast.com, and there's a newsletter link at the top of the page. Subscribe there, and we can keep you in touch with everything that we're doing with the show. The good news is we don't sell our marketing list, and we also don't, bombard you with tons of mail, but we will certainly let you know about what we're doing, so you can plan to enjoy the amateur radio hobby with us as we go continue on in 2023. Right, well, I think that just about sums up our show, number 396 of the ICQ podcast. I say all that's left to do, Dad, is to look after Mrs. B with a cup of tea. I know she's been out shopping this morning, so maybe she's got herself a nice little treat while she's been out shopping. So she just needs a cup of tea to go alongside that.
Yeah, certainly will, Colin. Your mum and I are going to have a cup of tea in a minute, and we'll spend the rest of the day together, and I'll try and find your mum something nice to make her day. So, all being in good. So I say 73 to you, Colin, and our listeners, and pass it back to you.
No problems at all. 73 is all. Catch you all again in a fortnight's time.